Good morning. I want to welcome everybody to the January Swanee River Water Management District Board meeting. Happy New Year to everybody. It's good to see everybody's faces and everybody survived the holidays. That's really, really, really good. I would like to, if you don't mind, if we can stand for an invocation and the pledge, I would appreciate that. Mr. Charles, would you please lead us in prayer? Sure.
Heavenly Father, we thank you for this day, Lord. We ask your mercy and your blessing on the folks in California that are battling these fires. Father, it's a whole community devastated. Father, I pray this year with the new year that we make change in our lives, that we pray for more patience and kindness in the world. Father, I pray for this staff. They work to protect these resources you've given us charge over. Father, I pray for this board that we would be sensitive to your guidance. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I don't know if you guys have noticed this, but our illustrious chair is out this month, and it's a board of nothing but men. So please bear with us and do the best we can to get through this without the feminine touch on our board, for sure, because they add so much to our lives. Miss Robin, would you please take the roll call?
Ms. Johns, Mr. Keith,
Here.
Mr. Schwab,
Here.
Mr. Smith,
Here.
Mr. Sessions,
Here.
Mr. Thompson,
Here.
Mr. Lloyd,
Here.
Mr. Wheeler.
Here. Thank you very much, Miss Robin. Are there any announcements of amendments by the agenda?
Yes, we have one deletion under Resource Management, Agenda Item 14, water well permitting interagency agreement between Swanee River and St. John's for Bradford County has been pulled from the agenda.
Okay. Any additions, Robin?
No additions.
Okay. Just wanted to let everybody know for the record that the fifth largest water management district staff was ready to go with that item on 14, but unfortunately our sister agency in St. John's was not quite ready, but we'll forgive them for that. I just want to let y'all know that the level of professionalism is where it is over here for sure. Thank you very much, guys, for great work on that. Hearing that agenda item change, I would entertain a motion to approve the agenda.
Comment.
Excuse me?
Public comment.
But let's do the agenda first and then.
move, Mr.
Yep.
Second.
All right. Any other discussion on that? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Excellent. Thank you. Now I'm going to move to public comment. I have one person here. First of all, I want to say that this meeting is open to the public, and it is on our website at the YouTube link of www.youtube.com / Swanee River Water Management District. And it's open to the public. So if you guys want to get connected, you're more than welcome to do that there. With our public comment, I have one on my desk here, and it says Brian Busher. Are you here? Yeah, please come up.
Good morning, Commission and staff. My name is Brian Bisher, and I'm with the Florida Karst Conservation Task Force associated with the National Speleological Society, which has over 8,000 members. We are concerned about a project that's been going on for some time, and you all have provided some approvals associated with this project, and this is in the city of Alachua. The reason that we're concerned is because we own a property immediately adjacent to this particular development, and it encompasses Mill Creek Sink. Mill Creek Sink is a swallet and identified as a significant geologic feature within Alachua County and the city of Alachua. Why is this important? There's been a dye trace study that was done in 2005, and I've given you a copy of a map that shows where the dye trace study found dye when dye was dumped into the sink. And it took approximately 7 days to travel along that route to the Santa Fe River. and exiting at Hornsby Spring. It took up to 154 days for that dye to eliminate from that water source. So anything that goes in the Swalette stands to stick around for up to half a year. Why is this important to this district? The second page illustrates what I understand to be an outline of a property that y'all have identified as a recharge field. And this particular feature called the Cross County Fracture, that this water travel goes right through this recharge area. So again, anything that goes through that, into that Swalette from the Mill Creek watershed is going to end up impacting y'all. The third page, and apologize if it's upside down compared to everything else, outlines more of an area where this Swalette is located. It's a small dot within the property outlined in yellow called NSS. That's us. And then to the right of there, you see Terra Phoenicia, and up above that is Terra Forest West. And up to the right is Terra Baywood. The yellow line is the mapped cave system that travels not only under 441, but also it goes through and underneath the Terra Phoenicia property all the way to under Lowe's. And this is a well-documented cave system of over 8,000 feet surveyed and still ongoing. The next page is a letter from the City of Alachua's manager back in 2022 to the developer saying that the projects are all intertwined. Terra Phoenicia, Terra April, and Terra Forest West. And why is this important to the district? Well, I know the district had sent a letter recently to the developer, Syed Mukhtara, as recently as December 28th, 2024, outlining what's necessary in order to be able to process their application for a permit through you guys. But you also approved a permit in 2023 for Terra Phoenicia. So my concern is that the developer, in piecemealing this project together, missed a step in tying these all together, and that y'all may have issued the permit to the Terra Phoenicia property without the full scope of the information, which is they've been put on notice that these projects are all intertwined and have an impact one upon the other. The impacts to our water system is what we're concerned about. And so we would just like this to be on your radar and to know that it's something that we take very seriously, the County of Alachua takes seriously, and even the City of High Springs, because their water wells within the City of High Springs are going to be impacted as well. So that's why I'm here. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there any other public comment? Hearing none, I'm going to close that out then. Item agenda number 5 is our consent agenda. And most of us have had a chance to read over that. So I'd entertain a motion to approve that or not.
So moved. Second.
Thank you. I have a motion and a second. Any discussion on that? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Thank you very much. Cooperating agencies, hydraulic conditions report.
Good morning, Mr. Chair, members of the board. I'd like to present the December 2024 hydrologic conditions report. I'd like to thank Sarah Ferson. She sent me this great photo of her hike she took through River Rise Preserve State Park not too long ago. And she stopped and snapped this photo of Santa Fe River Rise. I love this area, this uniqueness of being able to watch a river come out of the ground and know that the river's right underneath your feet. I think makes our district really, really unique, and it's a beautiful area out there. And this is one of the reasons why I love working for this district is just unique stuff like this geologically. But my thanks goes to Sarah this month. I think this was a great photo and definitely a great way to start our hydro report for December 2024. Rainfall for December of 2024, we had a district-wide average of about 1.3 inches, representing about 59% less than that long-term average of 3.2 inches. I wanted to point out that at the end of November, we had a surplus of 5.1 inches of rainfall. We lost quite a bit of rainfall, and I'll go through this in subsequent slides, but I did want to point out at the end of December, we ended up with a deficit of 1.9 inches of rainfall. Looking at this map here, the 1 to 1.5 inch range in dark blue encompasses that district-wide average for the month. And less than 1 inch range is that first one just below average for the month. And we see a lot of that scattered throughout the district. This is typical of the frontal boundary patterns that we get this time of year. Higher than average amounts, the 1.5 to 2 inch range in green, 2 to 2.5 inch range in orange. And we did see some more, areas of more than 2.5 inches. Some of those are included in Taylor County, just a tad bit in southern Taylor County. Southern Hamilton County, and then kind of southern part of Levy County, just outside of our district, in red, saw more than 2.5 inches. For the most part, the higher amounts of rain were kind of in the center part of the district, going from that southwest to northeast trek from Taylor County up through Hamilton, and then even in the southern part of our district, Levy County up through Alachua as well. As I mentioned, I wanted to talk a little bit more about the surplus deficit. This was the end of November, so drawing a box around the time frame, so from December 2023 all the way to November 2024, gave us a sum total rainfall of 59.8 inches of rain. We subtract that from the long-term average of 54.7, that gives us a 5.1 inch surplus. Moving that window of time forward, we lose about 8.3 inches of rain from December 2023 from that calculation, and we only pick up that 1.3 inches for December 2024. That only gives us a total of 52.8 inches for all of 2024, and subtracting that from 54.7 gives us that 1.9 inch deficit that I mentioned earlier. I did want to point out the 52.8 inch rainfall total for 2024 is ranked 56th out of 93 years of data. So just kind of giving you perspective on where we stand, or where we stood last year with the total amount of rainfall. Also, another thing I think to point out here that would be very, very beneficial to see, October, November, and December are all well below their average amounts for each of those months. So we haven't really hit the average since about September, really. We've exceeded the average in September. This is the departure from normal precipitation for the past 30 days. What I wanted to point out for the district here, all of it is in orange, and orange represents a 1.5 to 3 inch rainfall deficit. Rainfall deficits for the state of Florida extend over into the Panhandle, and even down into peninsular Florida as well. Only just a few areas in southern Florida are actually seeing some sort of rainfall surplus. So for the past 30 days, been kind of dry. With that said, though, stream flow conditions for December 2024 actually look pretty good. Now, to begin the month, we had a few gauges in the above normal, that 75th to 90th percentile. Those gauges include the Alapahat, Statenville, Alapahat, Jennings, Withlacoochee at Panetta, even down to Ellaville and Branford in the Suwannee River as well. And then we had a couple of gauges in the high, that greater than 90th percentile, and those include the Osceola at Lamont and then down to Rock Bluff on the Suwannee River. Reason being is late November, we had a big frontal system come through that dumped quite a bit of water on the Osceola Basin and in South Georgia, and a lot of that was kind of trickling down into our basin as well. Now, to end the month, all of our gauges were in the normal range, all the gauges within the district, that 25th to 75th percentile. The only exceptions really to that that were below normal were over at the St. Mary's, North Prong, and the McClenny gauges. Saw 10th to 25th percentiles both to begin and end the month, but that, of course, is outside of our district. Upper Florida and aquifer levels, this was the end of November. I wanted to show this to kind of compare with what we saw in December, but what we were seeing in November was extensive areas of that 75th to 90th percentile stretching from Jefferson County all the way through Suwannee, Columbia, Baker, even on the eastern part down into Bradford, Union, and Levy, and even over into Gilchrist as well. We did have a big area of above 90th percentile in Madison County, Suwannee County, even over into Columbia, and just a little bit of Lafayette showing as well. Now, fast forward 1 month, we see a big contraction of that 75th to 90th. A lot of those wells have now fallen into the normal range, the 25th to 75th percentile. We do still see some areas of 75th to 90th percentile in that light blue color, still up in Jefferson County, Madison County, down into Suwannee, Lafayette, even over in the eastern part, Bradford, Alachua, even down into Levy. One well over in Gilchrist also saw that 75th to 90th as well. Once again, kind of a contraction of that above 90th percentile as well. I think there's one well, it's hard to see there, but right there in Lafayette County. Then we had a couple wells here in Suwannee County that were that above 90th percentile for the month of December. I did want to point out something on here. This is just an artifact of how this is calculated. This is the 10th to 25th percentile. That well right there was in the lower bounds of the 25th percentile. I think it was like 26%. So it just kind of drew that there because there's no well controlling that at this point. I do want to point out, though, as I showed in the previous graphic where we had the past 3 months below average rainfall, if we continue that pattern, these areas are going to start to show that 10th to 25th percentile. And I say these areas, these unconfined areas in Jefferson County, Taylor County, even in Lafayette, Dixie, Gilchrist, and Levy, we may start to see some of that orange color creeping into our graphics within the next month. So we'll have our fingers crossed for a little bit more rainfall for the next few weeks. U.S. Drought Monitor, as to no surprise, most of our district is in the moderate drought category, a big chunk of our district in that category. Some of it over in the western part, in the D0, the abnormally dry, that includes Jefferson County, some of Taylor, Madison, and Hamilton counties as well. This is from last Thursday, of course, Thursday, January 9th. The new one will come out this Thursday. I haven't seen a whole lot about that. I know we got some rainfall yesterday, which was very helpful for us. We'll see if that has any impact on their assessment this coming Thursday from the U.S. Drought Monitor. I want to talk just a little bit about El Nino Southern Oscillation probabilities. This is kind of a busy chart, but we'll kind of go through it. As of this past Thursday, there was an update. I know I had been saying it probably for about a year now that we were looking to go into a La Nina. Well, that was made official this past Thursday. We hit that negative 0.5 degrees Celsius differential in the equatorial Pacific long-term records. So we're officially in a La Nina advisory. That's expected to continue on through February, March, and April at about a 59% chance. And then March, April, and May, sometime around that area, we've got a 60% chance of switching back into the neutral conditions, which is what we just came from. This La Nina is not going to stick around too long, and I don't think it's probably even going to be that strong. It's probably going to be just one of the weaker La Ninas. So, chances are we may or may not see that the temperature and rainfall differentials that usually accompany the characteristics of the La Nina. And as we go through time, it looks like we're going to kind of continue in those neutral conditions, but we do see a little bit of a higher probability going in later in the year of La Nina, and even El Nino kind of rears its head too toward the end of the record, August, September, October. But for right now, as I mentioned, we are in a La Nina advisory that looks to switch over probably early in the spring. With that said, National Oceanic Atmospheric Administration seasonal outlook for January through March does have us listed as below normal rainfall probabilities that we can kind of see in some of the records that we've had so far. Most of the southern United States is in below. We're in the higher percent chance of below for the state of Florida. And then above normal temperature probabilities for January through March as well. A lot of the southern United States, once again, in that above normal temperature probabilities, both of which are characteristics of a La Nina. So that's kind of why they have leaned that way in their modeling. All right, December 2024 summer, we had a rainfall amount of 1.3 inches, representing a 59% lower amount than that December average of 3.2 inches. As I mentioned, we had that surplus at the end of November of about 5.1 inches. That was reduced to a deficit of 1.9 inches at the end of December. District-wide upper Florida and aquifer levels fell from the 74th percent in November to the 62nd percent, so we're still above that median, which is good. And that's based on a median level decrease of about 0.6 of a foot across all our monitored wells for this report. As I mentioned, we're under a La Nina advisory. Those conditions are currently present and expected to remain through February through April, around a 59% chance. We do look to transition back to those El Nino Southern Oscillation neutral conditions at about a 60% chance sometime within that block of time from March to May 2025. And finally, moderate drought conditions are pretty much covering the majority of the district, but we do have parts of Jefferson, Madison, Taylor, and Hamilton counties only showing abnormally dry at this point, but I do expect that to change probably this Thursday when that comes out. Mr. Chair, I'll take any questions if the board has any.
Any questions for Robbie?
Yeah, I just got one, Robbie. If we go back to neutral conditions, does that give us a better chance of rain?
Mr. Chair, it doesn't hamper and it doesn't help. It's kind of, that kind of gray area. So the La Nina tends to hamper the rain, especially in our area. The El Nino tends to give us more rain. Neutral conditions, it's like it could or it couldn't. That's kind of how it's the, what do you call that? Like kind of the error in their model kind of thing. So it could or it couldn't, really. I think more than likely we're not going to have that hampering, and we're definitely not going to have that bonus rain that we're going to get from El Nino.
Just get average, right?
Just average. I think it'd be more or less average.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Robert, would these, I know this is early predicting, but with the El Nino coming up this summer, but still neutral probability, does that reflect anything on the hurricane season?
Mr. Chair, you mind?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So what we typically want in our area for the Atlantic is the El Nino, because that gives us that upper level wind shear that kind of either tears the storms apart or keeps them from forming. La Nina and El Nino, La Nina and then the neutral conditions are really, they don't impede those storms. So I want to say that we've been, I'm trying to think, we've been in times before where we've had those neutral conditions and we've had a bunch of hurricanes. Really what we want for this area is an El Nino, just so we can have that impediment in the Atlantic to keep those storms from forming.
Any other questions, Robbie? Thank you very much. Appreciate it, sir.
Sure.
Yes, sir. Cooperating agencies and organizations.
Yes, sir, Mr. Chair. This morning, we do have Chris Wynn here. Chris visits with us from time to time from the Fish and Wildlife Conservation Commission. He's in attendance as well. And then one of our cooperating organizations that we have with us this morning, and I don't know that she's been here before, but we have Michaela Rogers here from the Florida Fruit and Vegetable Association. But they are one of our cooperating agencies or cooperating organizations.
Well, welcome. Appreciate you guys being here. Thank you. Thank you. Service recognition for Scott Greger.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to say Scott and I, our history goes way back, as I know it does with you as well. But we do appreciate his service to the district here. When we both started here at this location, we were both out in the Kirby building. We were talking about that earlier. And a lot of water under the bridge since then.
Well, good morning, Mr. Chair, members of the board. It's my honor to recognize Scott Greger this morning for 20 years of service at the Swanee River Water Management District. Scott currently serves as a senior natural resource specialist for the district in the Office of Land Management. In 2000, Scott received his bachelor's degree in forest resources from the University of Georgia. Prior to that time, Scott had had a whole additional career working in construction, doing a variety of things. And then, like I said, in 2000, decided to get a bachelor's degree in forestry. In 2002, he began working on site to Hughes reference as a cooperator employed by the Florida Forest Service to support landowners in longleaf pine restoration, wildlife habitat development, and wetlands restoration projects through a cost share program. In 2005, although he had already been on site, he joined the district's land management team as a district employee and has been involved in various types of land restoration and land management projects since that time. Currently, Scott is responsible for our vegetative management program, which includes prescribed fire, mechanical treatments, and herbicide treatments. He also runs the Stark bypass mitigation efforts for invasive exotic removal and then the tree restoration. So that is a very important project to the district that we're doing with DOT, and Scott has taken on that portion of the project for which we are very grateful. Scott is a certified prescribed fire manager and licensed pesticide applicator. His interests include natural history, cultural history, and traveling. He actually lives just over the state line with his wife in Georgia, so we're happy that he makes the drive every day for us. And some interesting things about Scott's program. So Scott's vegetative management program, you heard me mention prescribed fire. Obviously, that is a very, very important program to the Swanee River Water Management District across 50,000 acres of our uplands and other natural communities where that level of vegetative management is required. We see what's going on out in California, which is, like you mentioned, Mr. Keith, is absolutely devastating. And I'm so grateful that the state of Florida supports a robust prescribed fire program that Scott implements for our district, along with mechanical and herbicide treatment. That program that he oversees annually, like I mentioned, the acreage, he tries to burn or treat about 12,000 acres every year, correct? And he has a little over a $1 million budget. It takes money to do what he's doing, and we appreciate very much the board's support of his program. It's really important for the safety of people, facilities, and other, not only our resources. So Scott provides phenomenal oversight of his program. The fact that y'all don't get calls about our prescribed fire and vegetative management program means that he is doing a very good job. And so I'm appreciative of the work that he does, especially in and around our private landowners and our other agencies, that we are staying out of their way and doing our job to manage our resources responsibly. But I would hold up his contract management and his oversight against anybody else in this district. He does a phenomenal job. And so with that, the district, Scott, would like to honor you with this clock. And really, it's more of a recognition of your dedication to the service of the district. It says that this is presented in appreciation to Scott Gregor for 20 years of dedicated service to the Swanee River Water Management District. And we really appreciate it a whole lot.
Really appreciate the recognition.
Thank you.
And I really appreciate working with such a great staff and leadership team as well, so.
And I think we probably want to take your photo. Very well. So Hugh, board, if y'all don't mind taking a photo. Sure. I see you step on.
Back as far as you can go, because I'm gonna have to.
Congratulations, sir. Yes, sir.
All right. Perfect. All right, guys. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, and 3.
Here, I'd like to add, we have a number of staff that way, but Scott is always one of those go-to people. If you need something done, even if it's not within his wheelhouse, you can go to him and he'll figure out a way to make it happen. We're blessed with a number of staff that way here. But again, I've known him for a long time, and he's always been had that perspective and that work ethic.
Well, I want to say that I've worked a lot with Scott with contracts over the years, and you always know where you stand with him, and you know that he's going to work hard to make sure that you have the resources and the tools and access and everything else that you need to get things done. And he's just a go-to guy. You're 100% right. And unfortunately, Scott and I had some contracts when he first got his job with the Forest Service, and that means to tell me that we're getting old, getting kind of long in our careers. So yeah. I mean, we had a lot more hair and it was a lot less gray when we but you know, we both early on in our careers we learned how to work with each other, and but he's just phenomenal. You know when you have an opportunity to work with Scott, you know things are going to get done, and it's going to be a good contract. So we appreciate your effort, Scott. Appreciate you a lot. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Okay, Counselor.
I don't have anything to report.
Excellent. That's good news. Thank you very much. Did you take a paycheck this week? That's this year of this month?
I'm fully incentive.
Okay, all right, I understand. Well, keep up the good work, sir. Thank you very much. All right, Mr. Alexander.
Chairman Schwab, members of the board, those in attendance, good morning. With item number 14 being removed, Business and Community Services now has 7 items on this morning's agenda. These will be items number 9 through 16 as they are listed. Items number 11 and 12 were approved by way of consent, so thank you for that approval. And then, so this morning we'll start with item number 9, a facilities update. This will be given by the Office of Administration Chief, Mr. Ben Glass. He will also present to you item number 10 for your consideration and approval. That item can be found on BCS page 1. And after that, we'll have Mr. Leroy Marshall come up and cover the remaining items. So Ben?
Good morning, Mr. Chair, members of the board. As far as facilities go, I'm sure you probably noticed when you came up, the roof looks a little different. We were able to begin work on the roof last week. The crew has been working hard. They're drying in as they tear off, so that underlayment that you see actually gets us dried in and watertight. They should, if work proceeds as scheduled, we should have the remainder of the roof tore off this week, and metal should start going up next week. We also are working to get our painters going. They will start hopefully this week, but if not, definitely next week. Happy to answer any questions. All right.
Thank you for the good work there.
Yes, sir. Keep it up.
Yes, sir.
I have one item for your consideration this morning, item number 10 on page BCS 1. Staff recommends that the governing board approve directive number 25-0001 for the agriculture cost share program. So this directive was really an administrative change. We're adding one item to the list of approved cost share. We're proposing to add one item to the list of approved cost share items in the directive. It's Verus mapping. This technology is necessary when you're installing variable rate irrigation system. It helps them map the soil type, which helps come up with that variable rate irrigation prescription. It was listed in our procedure manual, but not in the directive. So we just wanted to make sure we make those two match and able to move forward with that. Happy to answer any questions.
Mr. Chair,
Yes, sir.
is this going to take place of grid sampling, or is it just a separate deal?
Mr. Chair.
Yes.
It's a separate item. So it would not take the place of grid sampling on the cost share list. It can be used like a grid sample to pinpoint locations in the field to sample. So rather than a straight grid, this maps the soil type across the field. So you could delineate your management zones based on that soil type rather than based on the just a standard grid. Where we see it used in that application is kind of more the reaches of our district, where there's more variability in the soil types. Once you get in the deep sands, it's not gonna change very much as you pass across the field.
Well, I know it's a little more expensive, but it just on the surface, it looked like it would give a lot more information and be able to be more specific with the zones than the grid sampling. If to your point, if it's not worth it, even though it's a couple of bucks an acre or whatever, that's no sense in spending it, spending the money.
Mr. Chair, if I could add.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Thompson, just for clarification on there as well. Generally, you mentioned the grid sampling. That's typically related to your nutrient management and certainly showing whatever residual constituents are in the soil from a nutrient perspective. The Verus mapping actually enhances the awareness and knowledge of what the soil characteristics themselves are, moisture holding capacity, the ionic exchange capacity of the soil. So it does allow for more irrigation management rather than just nutrient management. It enhances the ability for irrigation management too.
Thank you, Ben.
What's the pleasure of the board? Excuse me.
Make a motion to go
Make-
with recommendation.
Second it.
All right, got a motion to second. Any other discussion on the item? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Thank you, sir.
Good morning, Mr. Chair, members of the board. Before we get started, I would like to introduce a new hire that we just was able to bring on in January 6th, Wynn McDonald. Wynn recently joined the district as a project manager in the Office of Resource Management within the Projects Division. Prior to working at the district, she was employed with Live Oak Pest Control, where she ran the termite department for 10 years and most recently transferred to the position of bookkeeper. Wynn was born and raised in Suwannee County, where her family has resided on a farm for over 100 years. She enjoys gatherings, family gatherings, weekends on the Suwannee River, and working in her flower garden during the spring and summer months. As I said before, Wynn will be a project manager 1 in the Environmental Projects Office.
Welcome aboard.
Welcome.
Yep.
Be here.
Thank you.
Okay. Next, I'll be doing item 16, page 36. It is a task work assignment for contract 2425.001 with WSP USA. As you guys know, the district has been a cooperating partner with FEMA for over 20 years. In 2024, September of 2024, the district was awarded a grant for an amount of $1,043,000 to implement the FY24 risk map services. Of this $1 million, $750,000 was allocated to WSP. This grant is a direct result of the comments that we got when we went to the Santa Fe, when we did the Santa Fe flood risk review. All of those comments we got in, one of the things that we determined was that the cities, the urbanized areas needed a more detailed study. So we worked with FEMA to get that funding, and that's the result of this FY24 funding. The cities that will be studied with the detailed study are the cities of Alachua, Gainesville, Hot Springs, La Crosse, Waldo, Lottie, Lake City, Fort White, and Lake Butler. So pretty much all of the urbanized areas within the Santa Fe are going to get a detailed study, and then that will be added to the revisions that we've done with the Santa Fe thus far. We went for an RFQ in last year where we were where the board accepted 3 consultants to do product production. It was WSP, AECom, and Dewberry WSP. This is the first contract under the RFQ for WSP for $750,000. So the recommendation is to authorize the executive director to approve task work assignment 2425-044.001 with WSP for FEMA risk map 24 for an amount not to exceed $750,000.
Chair.
Yes.
Leroy, is that $1,043,000 that we got as a grant from FEMA? Is that something that you initiate, or is that just something that's on a list that says we got this money's available, apply for it? Kind of curious.
Mr. Chair. So every year we put together a 5-year business plan that we brought before you in December. And that plan, in that plan is where we go through, with the help of Atkins, we go through and project where we think funding will be needed for the next 5 years. And then each year we basically stick to that plan as best possible and submit that to FEMA yearly in an application process that we start usually about in March. And that's how we come up with that. Now, this obviously was not in the plan. We put it in the plan in December, but we typically try to run that plan as close as possible.
Well, I think we all recognize that through that process, it's a much needed data point that needs to go into there to help with the mapping and maybe prevent future problems from arising, like the map revisions we're going to do. So I was just curious about how the money was generated. Yeah, thank you.
Any other questions? What's the pleasure of the board?
Motion to approve.
Second.
We got a motion and a second. Any other discussion on the matter? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, like sign? Thank you, sir.
All right, Mr. Chair, I just wanted to also give you an update on the Taylor County groundwater study. The contracts and everything have been executed. The consultant has been doing all his data gathering. That is projected to be finished this month, and next month they'll start the model and putting the model together to start that modeling.
What's your timeline? Do you think you'll have everything complete where we'll have a model?
They are thinking about 18 months.
Okay, still 18 months out.
Yes, sir.
No problem. Thank you very much, sir. Thank you very much, Ms. Alexander. Ms. Potter, nice to see you again.
Nice to see y'all again. The Division of Outreach and Operations has 8 items for y'all this morning, which will be presented by myself and our land management chief, Lorna Radcliffe. First, before we get started, Troy Roberts, our communications chief, has an announcement to make regarding the symposium. But before he comes up, I just wanted to note that Leroy, Troy, and I would say Mary Diaz have done a tremendous amount of work on setting up the symposium that we have planned for later this month. We are working with a contractor to help get that event on the ground, and certainly the college has been very, very helpful. But due to a number of things, I think our staff they are taking that responsibility very, very seriously, making calls, making invitations to our local counties and commissioners, all with the goal of increasing outreach regarding issues that y'all said are really important, one of them being flooding and permitting. So I just want to acknowledge and publicly thank them for all of their hard work. It's taken up a lot more of their time and their schedule than I think what we all originally thought, but I'm looking forward to a really great event. So with that, Troy's going to come tell you about the status of that, and then we'll get started on the items.
Good morning, Mr. Chair, members of the board. Before we get started on the symposium, I did want to note, y'all all have district calendars in front of you. I thought they turned out great. We have some amazing photographers around our district, and was very happy to feature their work. Showcases the beauty of some of our locales, and especially some of these places that a lot of people may never see. So thought it turned out great. We've had a great response to it. I know we've probably given out more than a third of them already, of the ones printed, and we still are getting requests, even from some of our sister districts who have requested some. So that's great. And just wanted to make sure that you each had one.
One thing for the future, though, I noticed that my birthday's not on the official holiday registry in August. I just letting you know.
Let me make a note, and I'll even put like an address on
Okay, I
it.
appreciate it. You know, you can write it in with a pen, but it looks so much better when it's typed in there. I'm just saying.
Next year, I got you covered.
Thank you, sir. Thank
you. Regarding the symposium, so we've spoken about this a few times before. Obviously, it is coming up. It is 2 weeks from today at Florida Gateway College on January 28th. Each of you have received invitations. If you have not registered and are planning on attending, let me know, let Leroy know, any of our staff, make sure we get you registered. That way we have an approximate head count of how many people are going to be there. That way we can plan for lunch and snacks and that sort of stuff. So as of this morning, we have approximately 100 people who have registered for the event, and we have, I believe, 23 vendors. This is on par with what we were anticipating and expecting. There are still a couple of counties and cities and officials who we think may need to be there, and so we are personally reaching out to them to make sure that they get that invitation, and if they feel that it is necessary for them and for their communities, that they attend. Obviously, we have a full range of activities and speakers throughout that day covering permitting and flood risk and grants and funding processes. DEP is going to be there, DEM, DOT, various government organizations that are going to be speaking about different processes and opportunities they offer. Our Chief Resiliency Officer, Wes Brooks, is going to be our keynote speaker at lunch. And again, we'll have a lot of vendors there who will be available for, the cities and counties who are there. If, they're looking at these projects and they're hearing what we're talking about and they're interested in that, then they have vendors who they can discuss with also. So we think it's going to be great. Again, we're 2 weeks out and we're looking at the exact numbers that we wanted. So we think this is going to be a tremendous event. We're happy with the response, and we're ready for next Tuesday. But if any of you have any questions.
If there's people in our areas, I'm sure that we know personally that you'd like to see there, let us know and we can help reach out as well. Sometimes that nudge from Just a little bit of encouragement might help out. So if we can help you, let us know.
Sure. I think we've had pretty good response. And there's some of them, that we've reached out to. Oh, well, I meant to register and haven't gotten around to it yet. And so sometimes that, like you said, that personal touch will help get them where an email may not.
Do you have all your sponsors yet?
Mr. Chair.
Yes, sir.
We have a few remaining spots. I believe we have some vendors and contractors that we've been in discussions with who have not gotten around to it just yet, but we anticipate having the number that we were hoping for.
Okay. Just checking.
Thank you, Troy. Appreciate all y'all's hard work and what y'all are doing there on that. Thank you.
Thanks, sir.
Did they get their mailed out invitations as requested? Okay. We want to make sure we followed up on that, Mr. Schwab, from last month. Got you on that item. All right, we are going to move on to item number 20, which is on your OPS page 12. And this is the approval for modifications to the district's 5-year land acquisition work plans pursuant to the statute that you see listed above. The background on this work plan, which for clarification is the map. The map is the work plan. They are one and the same. The district has maintained land acquisition work plans and maps in accordance with Florida statutes 373-139 and Florida statutes 373-199 as far back as 1998 and the year 2000. So the first let me go back. The work plans date back to 98 with the first statutorily required work plan developed in 2000. This was known as the 5-year land acquisition work plan. The second plan was approved by the board in 2001 in accordance with the other Florida statutes known as the Florida Forever work plan. So these work plans have been around for some time and required by statute for some time. Both plans require that any updates or modifications are approved by the governing board, which is why we are here before you this morning. Due to the similar requirements of the plans as defined in statute, we've created a unified land acquisition work plan that includes the Florida Forever work plan map, as well as strategic initiatives for water resource and water supply projects, access needs, and management improvements. The 5-year land acquisition plan requires, the statute requires that notice is given 14 days prior to the governing board meeting, which was done on December 24th in the Florida Administrative Register. And it also requires that each county for which a project is listed be notified. That was also done. We have not received any comments back from the counties for which we contacted. Mostly importantly, this plan is a guide, and that's really important when you see this plan presented before you. This is just a guide for which the types of property the district is interested. Not every acre or even a portion of this work plan will be acquired. Instead, the plan is a high-level view based off soil type, natural community type, floodplain inundation, adjacency to district lands, proximity to surface water systems, and other natural resource criteria that you've defined as part of the directive for land acquisition. The plan satisfies the statutory requirements that we've mentioned already, and authorization to seek or negotiate on land purchases requires board approval, and all land transactions must be approved by the governing board. And with that, we will click over, thank you, Tyler, to the plan. This is a copy of the 5-year and Florida Forever. So this is our land acquisition work plan that we are requesting your approval on for today. Concerning the plan, you'll note that the lands in green are currently owned by the Water Management District. The solid green are fee, the hatched green are less than fee or conservation easements. Other public lands are indicated in the blue and then the yellowish tan color that you see on the perimeter. So I'll use my clicker here. This types of colors are other public lands. This is other public lands as well. The blue area, the blue blobs here are spring shed areas. This tan area that runs through the spine of the district are known as our rapid infiltration areas or our RIB areas, which are, this is just a geological feature based off soils and proximity to rock that indicates potential project areas is why that's important. So the areas for acquisition, for consideration, or just, again, a work plan are in purple. And with that, I will take any questions.
help me out. Clarify the hashtag area,
So the, Mr.
green hashtag area.
Yes.
The green hatch, so you, in like an area like this,
No, the light green. Or the blue. Well, I don't know what gray or whatever that color is.
okay, I'll
Gray
walk,
on the map here, but
sure, I'll walk through the legend for you. So I mentioned the green here and then green here. This is water management ownership. This blue blob through here, this background of a blue blob,
okay.
those are, you can see down here listed, those are spring sheds. The tan through the middle are rapid infiltration basin areas. This is a layer we created based on proximity to rock. And then again, this is just for our own data analysis. The X's that you see up here, this X, these are priority focus areas. So those are areas identified through the Florida Department of Environmental Protection as critical areas for water quality improvements. And then the B maps are the perforated blobs right here. And those are basin management action plan areas, which are color coded based on whether it's the Santa Fe, Swanee, or the Wakasasa. Did that help?
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
So Caitlin, if I understand correctly, Mr. Thompson, Mr. Chair, sorry.
No problem.
I think the crosshatched areas that you were talking about are the priority focus areas. I'm looking at my map here as far as, those are designated based upon water quality concerns relative to the basin management action plan and the.
So,
Those are.
so help me out just a little bit too. So our priority focus, the priority focus areas don't necessarily include the areas that are our priority acquisition area.
So, Mr. Chair, the priority focus areas that you see listed, the hatch, that term, I don't associate that term necessarily with this land acquisition map. It is just a data layer that shows areas of critical concern for water quality as identified by DEP. The work plan, you could strip everything off of this map, every single data layer off this map, and you would approve the items that are in this top periwinkle color, which are in purple. And again, this is just a guide or a work plan. All the other data, which is listed down here, is just for a reference to show where and what other natural resource significance are in and around the acquisition areas. So the colors, to reiterate that one more time, the colors that you're considering for the work plan are the purple areas.
Mr. Chair, if I could add, Mr. Thompson, for further clarification on that itself, that PFA or priority focus area designation, that's actually one of the considerations that we use for our cost share programs as far as like a ranking. If it's located within there from a water quality project perspective, it may receive a higher ranking than some project that is outside of those designated areas. And Department of Environmental Protection does the same thing whenever they're looking at awarding grant funding. If it's projects that are requested within those areas, they generally rank a little bit higher than outside of those areas. That's just one of the criteria for consideration.
Yeah, okay.
Any other questions for Caitlin? What's the pleasure of the board?
Motion approved.
Second.
I got a motion and a second. Any other discussion on the matter? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
I got one question with regard to this, though. The earlier presentee or the public comment from the Karst Environmental, he made a statement regarding it was that we were looking at it from a watershed or a water, not a watershed, a water recharge area. And was he in favor of that or not in favor of that? I didn't understand.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
I will defer to the permitting office. That's not a land acquisition question at this point.
Okay.
Mr. Hugh?
The mill sink area, Mr. Thompson, certainly Leroy chime in on this if you have. But that Mill Creek sink area that he was referring to in the maps that he gave us, we have a project that was done, it's a water quality project. That was actually the district, along with other partners, did a project there in the city of Alachua a number of years ago. And the concern is, and it was documented through DITRE studies, that there was connectivity from that sink to Hornsby Spring. We went out and visited Hornsby Spring on a board tour a few years ago. And so there is development being proposed, and his concern, their group's concern is that that could be impacted. And I think it's both from a water quality and a water supply area, because certainly when you have those geological features, the sinkholes and all, you have potential for recharge into the aquifer. So that addresses the water supply side, but then the water quality side, you have potential for impacts to the water quality within the aquifer itself. So I wouldn't want to put words in their mouth, but I think they wanted an awareness there. And our staff have been engaged with the city and with the county, Alachua County, relative to those concerns and the permitting process associated with those subdivisions being.
Yeah, I was, there was no question about the development side in the subdivisions. I got that. They're definitely not in favor of. But I was wondering about the recharge, which is a, you know, I wouldn't say it's a priority, but it is somewhat of a focus for this board for recharge. And I didn't know if that was an existing project or something that was on the board. I was just trying to get clarification if that was something they were not for or against.
Mr. Chair, I would certainly defer our projects team relative to the interest of that particular site as a project area for a aquifer recharge project. I do believe that there's water recharge occurring there. The concern and most of the rationale for putting that water quality project in is that there was no treatment for the stormwater. That is a commercialized intersection there. If you're familiar with the I-75 and 441 intersection, there's considerable stormwater that's generated. And then the flow where it was headed before made its way into that sink really without any type of water quality treatment. So the intent of that project was to intercept that stormwater, treat it, and then allow it to make its way into the natural sink feature there with that. And so it was primarily oriented from a water quality perspective with there. But there is this water supply benefit there, but that was not the main intent of that project.
Right, but the project's that project's completed, right?
It is completed and
Yeah,
has
that
been
was-
completed for a few years now.
Right. Okay. Thank you. I'm sorry to interrupt your presentation.
Happy to entertain questions.
Any other questions for Kayla? Thank you.
Okay, all right. The next item for your consideration today is on OPS page 14. This is the approval of Governing Board Directive 25-002, Land Acquisition and Surplus Guidelines. Last year in August, you approved an updated Governing Board Directive 24-005, clarifying and outlining land acquisition and surplus guidelines for practices regarding what we should consider when land acquisition or surplus offers come to the board. On December 10th, 2024, so last month, we presented procedural changes to the Lands Committee for consideration. Based off of the direction from the Lands Committee, staff have proposed the following edits to the directive. And we have a presentation to go over what those proposed procedural changes are. So this should look familiar if you were at the Lands Committee last month. This is an abbreviated version of that presentation. There are a number of governance items that dictate how the land acquisition and surplus program should be administered. You see the Florida statute listed there. As well, we have 40B9, our rule that For the district itself, we have several board directives. We also have several legal opinions, and then we have procedures that staff follow in order to properly carry out the program. At the Lands Committee, Mr. Schwab had asked for a history of how the Lands Committee was established, and this is a brief overview of the establishment of that group. Originally, in 2009, the surplus lands, in December of 2009, the surplus committee, Lands Committee was established, and the goal of that committee at the time was to identify surplus lands of existing land holdings and approve or consider exchanges. Land acquisitions, outright land acquisitions were taken to the full board. In August of 2013, the Surplus Lands Committee was renamed to the just Lands Committee as we know it today. 2 additional board members were added to the existing 3, and the committee's responsibility was broadened to include land acquisition review in addition to surplus and exchanges. And so that's the history that we have. We have board recordings to indicate these changes and when they occurred. The current acquisition procedure, as we know it today, is listed here. I had offered some proposed changes to the Lands Committee. And again, based on y'all's feedback, what we are proposing moving forward is that as land acquisition proposals come in, they would go through the proper application process, which bona fide offers are outlined in our rule, reinforced by our directives and procedures. So there's already an established way for those to occur. Staff would review those as part of the Land Acquisition and Surplus Committee. Then we will take those offers to the Lands Committee to request negotiation. What we would like to propose is that after the Lands Committee consider those requests for negotiations, staff can go out and do the due diligence. This is consistent with what the historical Lands Committee process has been. And then once the negotiations have occurred, that offer would come back to the full board. And we feel, so the proposed process would be, as you see listed here, application, staff review, Lands Committee, request to negotiate, staff due diligence, governing board offer, and resolution. We would also ask that staff be authorized to negotiate on access easements. This was in response to a comment that Mr. Thompson had made about the FDOT easements that we get, other easements for access that we receive from nearby neighbors and landowners. The people who are requesting the easements pay for those, so there's no cost incurred by the district, and they would certainly come to you for final approval, but we feel that staff can probably negotiate those because, again, there's not staff or district dollars expended. And then we would also like to move forward, which, again, I think this is already implied that we can do this, but for the sake of clarification, given just trying to keep our processes tidy, to go ahead and negotiate on surplus properties that you've already declared. So the list that you see in your board materials every month that you or previous boards have already approved as surplus, maybe 2 years ago or 10 years ago, when we get calls for those, which we actually have 3 calls that for people wanting property, already existing surplus property, we'd like to be able to go ahead and negotiate with them, update appraisals as needed, go out to bid. We're working with Tommy to go ahead and get deeds drafted based off of the restrictions the board at the time identified, and then we would open those up for bid. So those are already lands that y'all have disposed of or determined to be available for disposal. So that is what we are proposing, and we have outlined that in the memorandum, and then it is updated in the directive language in the copy that you see attached. With that, I'll take questions.
I wasn't here last month. I wasn't a part of that Lands Committee meeting, but I applaud the committee for, it looks like y'all condensed the procedure somewhat, so it's good work.
Caitlin, I do have a question. With the new proposal, you were saying that it was taking several months to kind of do the negotiations through the committees and back and forth to the board and all the other stuff. So how much time do you think you're going to be able to save by cleaning these steps up?
Without question, we'll save 2 months. I would expand that out to say it's not just the 2 months that you save going to the board, it's the prep work ahead of that, juggling it with all the other items that may be going on at the time, as well as the stop and go when you're negotiating with those landowners. Every step that where there's an additional decision point to be made, they kind of get squirrely sometimes. It creates doubt in their minds sometimes. So I would say at least 2 months, potentially more, because I think the negotiations will go more smoothly with this process. And again, I think this clarifies how the historical process has been, but was not very clear procedurally on our end. And I hope meets the intent of the Lands Committee to see properties several times and give us time to think about them and mull over them before y'all as a board make the final decision.
So in your professional opinion, do you feel like that this is adequate to a good policy going forward for your staff and the people that are, in your opinion?
Yes, sir.
Okay, good. Excellent. What's the pleasure of the board?
Motion to approve.
Okay, we got a motion and a second. Any other discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, like sign? Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it very, very much. We'll get all the associated supporting documentations cleaned up and clarified pursuant to these directives and the work plans. And with that, we'll have Lorna come up and present 2 other items.
Morning, Mr. Chair and board members. I'll be presenting items number 23 and 24 today. Item number 23 is in regards to the use of district land for an apiary lease. Apiaries are beehives conducive, or locations for beehives. It's conducive to honey production. The district manages properties suitable for apiary operations and other uses. Utilization of district properties for an apiary or another lease does require a competitive bid pursuant to Florida statutes. On November 25th, 2024, the district released an invitation to bid for an apiary lease on the High Springs Wellfield and the Santa Fe River Ranch tracts in Alachua County. The Santa Fe Queens was the only responsive bidder with $450 per tract per year. Pursuant to the statute, a notice of intent was published in the newspaper for that county. Notice was posted on December 11th, December 18th, and December 24th. The lease terms are consistent with other water management districts which hold apiary leases. This is currently the only apiary lease on our district lands. However, staff are evaluating additional tracts suitable for leases. This lease will be a 3-year term, so it'll expire January 14, 2028. The district staff recommend entering into a lease agreement with the Santa Fe Queens LLC for an apiary lease on the High Springs Wellfield and Santa Fe River Ranch tracts.
Yes, sir.
Couple of questions. Give me an idea of the acreage of the, say, the river tract, the ranch.
Mr. Chair? So each lease location is a 1/4 acre. So there's 3 locations on the Santa Fe River Ranch and 3 locations on the High Springs Wellfield. So
Okay. Are these 2 particular areas, are they open to the public? Are they used right now by the public?
yes, sir.
And do we see any concern with this, mixing this with the public?
No, sir.
Any other questions?
Motion to approve.
Excellent.
Second.
I got a motion and a second. Any other comments? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, like sign? Thank you very much.
All right, item number 24 for your consideration is regarding the governing board directive number 25-0003 for district use and lease of lands. On May 8th of 1990, the governing board approved the public use of district lands, Governing Board Directive 90-0001. This directive established a mechanism and guidelines to allow individuals or groups to use district lands for a temporary basis. In November of 2024, the Office of Land Management reviewed that governing board directive for public use and recommends the following edits. We'd like to refine the subject, reference the applicable Florida statutes and Florida Administrative Code, and reduce the unneeded verbiage. Approval of the revised directive will supersede Governing Board Directive 090-001, along with former versions of similar content, and become effective immediately. A red line and a clean line version are in your packet today. So the recommendation is to approve the Governing Board Directive number 25-0003 for district land use and lease.
Any comments? Yes, sir.
Just a brief one. I'm always in favor of removing language and being overbearing, but I just have a question. On the red line version of the document, it has a lot of uses that we specifically said were not applicable or could not use it for. Now that's being redlined out. Is that a concern? I mean, at all? I mean, do you feel like you're going to have to go back and police the use?
Mr. Chair,
Not doing
any verbiage that was removed should be in statutes or rule or directive.
Okay. So, which brings me to another question. For a layperson who is applying for a use permit and they don't know statute, how are we communicating that so that somebody doesn't do something that we don't intend for them to do by statute, but yet they become in violation?
So that would basically be through communication and work with the leasee and making sure that they are aware of the statutes and providing the statutes if necessary. Yeah, so as Caitlin was pointing out, also our special use authorizations that we utilize sometimes do point out statutes in them also and have the terms.
Mr. Chair,
Again,
go ahead. Mr. Todd.
again, I'm all for limiting the amount of material that someone has to read over to be able to apply or to comply. But I also am concerned about a lack of communication on our part, making an applicant aware of, hey, you can't do this, but then they'd say that we didn't tell them that. I mean, I'm not trying to be over reactive here, but I fear, we do such a good job of communicating now and making the public aware of what we can and can't do. And I just feel like I don't want us to get into a situation where we're not doing that.
Mr. Chair? Additionally, by referencing the statute rather than having all the verbiage, we're also making sure that we are constantly in compliance with what the updated statute or updated rule is, to where we're not having to go back and modify or potentially have verbiage that's not current.
Okay.
Yeah.
Again, and I agree with you. As long as we are communicating with the applicant when they go online, they fill something out and they send it in, as long as somebody on staff is then reminding them, read over this statute, because that's what is applicable. That's all I'm asking.
Yes, sir. And just to, I think, clarify, so the board directive that you have in front of you is, the cleaning up here is just not to repeat. Our effort is to keep it clean, not repeat what's already been stated by the rule, which is a higher authority, and the statute, which is an even higher authority. And Lorna mentioned the consistency. So the directive is directing staff. It's not a communication tool that we use to the public. Our website is what we primarily use. We post on district lands. And also when folks come in for those special youth authorizations that the rule gives us authority to grant or a lease, those conditions for use on our lands are clearly posted. So we have, again, on-site communication. We have our website, which is our primary tool for prohibited use that we push pretty hard. So the removal of this language is an administrative clerical item to keep us consistent, again, with the other governing authorities out there. Our communication to the public is ever increasing and not decreasing. So I just want to give you that assurance. This is not decreasing outward communication to the public in any way. In fact, it's clarifying it for staff so that we can better communicate with the public.
My apologies for belaboring the issue. I didn't realize that was the case.
Well, and again, we should have done a better job clarifying that on our end relative to your question, but that's accurate, so.
Mr. Chair, if I could add as well, and Mr. Thompson, that's one of the reasons, which I think it's worked very well, and that a number of the public have engaged in using it with our online special use authorization application on there, that speaks to the activities that are authorized through there from a clarity perspective for the general public to be aware of what they can do out on some of the district lands with that. And I think it's a big positive, and Lorna, you or Troy, Lorna, public have engaged in using that now online more favorably. But it's a good point to be made as far as what they are and are not able to do on district lands. It's critical
You've
to
done
be
such a
aware.
good job of communicating that. I applaud you guys tremendously, and I apologize for. I didn't realize we were talking about an internal communication and not something that was going out to the public.
I'm glad you're looking into it. I was a senior in high school when y'all first did that authorization. So, it's time to change some things. It's been 30 some odd years. Any other questions and comments? What's the pleasure of the board?
Motion to approve.
Second.
I got a motion and a second. Any other questions, comments? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, like sign. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Caitlin.
That concludes our items.
Appreciate it. With being that we're in a conclusion point and we don't have very many more items, does anybody need a break? If we do, we will. You do need a break? Okay, because we only got about, a few more minutes.
No, I'm just messing.
Dr. Brown?
Morning, Mr. Chair, members of the board. I just have a brief update for you as item number 25. I did want to let you know the DEP has accepted the priority list that you approved late last year. So we continue to do the technical work pursuant to that priority list. Also, in addition to the work that Leroy is working on internally with the district for projects, we're continuing to coordinate with St. John's and DEP on larger regional projects that might involve stakeholders across both districts. They completed the first phase of that work, and they're now seeking funding for a more detailed assessment to move that forward, and we'll continue to stay involved in that process as well. We're also anticipating that we will be distributing the swim plan that Susie spoke about at the end of last year sometime later this month. And again, we'll keep you informed as that work goes out. With that, I'm happy to take any questions.
Any questions, Dr. Brown? Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, Dr. Brown, I do have one question real quick. Being that you're working with St. John's and they're kind of derelict on item number 14, are they really hard to deal with? Do we need to get them punched up over there, talk to Dr. Shortell or something like that, or?
Dr. Shortell is not the person to talk to there right now.
Oh, okay.
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 We do engage with them. We remind them of things frequently, so.
Well, evidently, they don't have the same work ethic and standard that we do here at the fifth largest water management district. And I just wanted to point that out one more time.
Participate in that part of it.
Yes.
I need to maintain those good working relationships.
Okay. Well, I'm sure you guys are doing a great job working with those kind of folks. But I appreciate you guys, really. Thank you for the level of professionalism.
Thank you, sir.
Yep.
Mr. Chair, I appreciate your comments with that. And I like to encourage the director there that a lot of the good things that they do are a result of Swanee staff that have moved over to St. John.
Absolutely. You know, they've been poaching us for many, many years after we get them trained up right.
Yeah, but I must say that, we have tried to bring back a few of those staff, and we also some of their excellent staff.
And we have.
had over there, and
Well, every once in a while, those excellent employees that strive for excellence always come back home to where excellence is.
there you are,
achieved.
there you are. Well, Happy New Year. I can't believe the month of January is already half gone, today being the 14th. And so going forward, I do want to remind you that if you do decide to go to the symposium, I think it's going to be an excellent event. As mentioned, you've already heard some of the numbers on the attendance, and we anticipate that to continue to grow before the event itself. But if you do want to go, please let me know, or Robin will get you registered for that there. And again, Leroy, Mary, Troy, staff have done a great job with pulling that together and coordinating it. I think we would like to make it, depending upon the success of this one, but I think we would like to make that a future event as well as regulatory changes occur. But it's not just regulatory; it's an informational session as well. So I think it'll be very helpful going forward. Kudos to Troy on leading the effort with the calendar that you see in front of this. I have received praise for the district putting that out, and that has primarily been one of Troy's efforts in getting that drawn together. The photos that you see in there were all submitted by the public. With it. And there were a number of other great photographs. It's a bit challenging to whittle it down to the number that are represented there. That's just because our district has a lot of beautiful resources, and I think that this will help highlight some of that information. I would like to talk to the chair, Mr. Richard, about whether or not they want to add the board members' birthdays to the calendar.
It's debatable.
Some people are more sensitive about that knowledge than others.
I didn't say we had to put ages up there, just, recognition be fine.
With that. Do hope whenever y'all come back to the next board meeting that we will have made considerable progress on having a new metal roof on our buildings here. As you all know, y'all have all been involved in construction projects. Ben and Kelly have been doing a great job with that, and certainly staff in working through those challenges. The noise that comes along with it, and just the debris, and there's just construction in general going through there. So looking forward to that with a new design coming in from a metal roof with here, and hopefully the longevity that will bring as well with it. On a happy note, and the roof is a happy note too, but on a happy note, I do want to announce Jonathan Crane, who works with our ag team here under Ben's tutelage. He works along with Savannah. But Jonathan and his wife had a baby girl the 23rd of December. Collins Nancy is her name. And Jonathan and his wife Kelsey are happy and healthy along with the baby. So we're always glad to see an addition from a familiar sense here at the district with that. We may have an off-site meeting in March. Right now it's anticipated it would be out at the research center there. We may look at some activities and research project that they have ongoing, as well as looking at some of our resources. This is a kind of a field trip that we had planned earlier when the river didn't quite cooperate. That's okay. That's what we deal with. But we may be able to get out and look at some of the springs and also some of the shoals area along the Swanee is what we're envisioning for a field tour associated with that, but we'll keep you informed with it. And I do want to thank our land management staff for continuing to be very proactive and engage with our salvage cuts relative to the hurricane damage. That is an ongoing effort, and still trying to obtain some value from the timber that was downed as a result of those hurricanes going through there. And not only that, but you heard Caitlin gave a a good narrative of some of the work that Scott's involved with and some of our other staff as well under Lorna's leadership. They were able to burn a little over 350 acres out at Mallory last week, I believe it was. Conditions were right for that to happen. So anytime that we can have that management strategy in place, it's a good thing. And Mr. Chair, that's all I've got. I know we are a bit early, but that's not necessarily a bad thing. We're trying to be efficient.
Yeah, thank you, sir. Any questions for you today? Well, thank you very much, sir. And any other board comments or concerns that we want to bring up? Okay, we do not have any workshops or committee meetings today, so I'd entertain a motion to adjourn our meeting.
Motion to adjourn.
We got a motion, a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Thank you for attending today.
Excellent job, sir.
Thank you.